Fiona, we will hand it over to you.
I've I've put together a few slides. So this is really just an introduction because I'm quite new to this group as well as just launching my business. I thought I'd just do a really general, here's me, and also here's what I do. Um, so I grew up in Aberdeen, and I've got a follow-up slide on that point because of our conversation last week when we were talking about how grey Aberdeen is. But this one here is, so that top left picture is my school, which was very, very grey and still is very, very grey because it looks exactly the same, but it is being rebuilt. So hopefully it'll be a bit more colourful in its new form. The Aberdeen skyline is across the bottom. We've got a lot going on in Aberdeen in terms of buildings, although they are grey, they're beautiful. So yeah, lots of churches and other stuff going on. And I grew up while being at school was great and everything, and I went to university in Aberdeen as well. My main focus probably throughout my education was my sport, which was rowing. So I put in just a few pictures there. So I rowed for Scotland quite a lot, but I also latterly, when I was coming out of competitive rowing, I did a lot of coaching. So that top right picture is me coaching one of the girls that I was coaching, the sculler up here at the top. So that's really my initial background. Aberdeen is colourful. I put in all the colourful pictures I could find of Aberdeen. So we've got loads of new art in Aberdeen. So there's quite a few of those up there. We've got some great parks with loads of flowers, and Union Street, which gets a lot of a really bad reputation. It's our main street in Aberdeen, but even it sometimes is colourful, and that's a picture of it with a bus. But interestingly, there's a lovely fog in the background, which does happen a lot in Aberdeen. Um, my experience, so I've worked for corporate organizations all my life, and this change to working for myself is completely new to me. But I've done a load of research. I've been working 12 weeks of notice, and during that time, I've had the opportunity to research what it means and how I'm going to pitch my business. So that's been really interesting. I've loved every minute of that. Um, I've worked for a variety of organizations, information technology. So that SAIC is actually an American company, and they had an IT division in Aberdeen who worked primarily for BP at the time. It's moved on now, it's Wipro now, and there's other things going on. But at the time, it was IT for BP. I've worked for a number of oil and gas organizations, which is typical of being in Aberdeen because that's our, well, I say it's our whole, we have other industries. We do have tourism, whiskey, loads of other food kind of options and things like that. But oh, and fishing and shipping and yeah. So that was Wood Group and Senergy and Repsol all have been oil and gas related. Active Payroll was a bit of a year. I worked for them for a year, and it was a bit of a change of role for me. I primarily worked in a kind of key account director role for them, and that was quite interesting because I come from an HR background, although I'm not an HR person. But what I got the opportunity to do was to work with other businesses, their HR functions, but connecting them with payroll because the HR and payroll relationship can be really tricky because it kind of, yeah, it just can be. HR don't necessarily understand why payroll need it a certain way. Payroll don't understand why HR can't do it that way. So there can be a bit of aggro. So that was really interesting for me to help manage that relationship in that business. So that's really what my background looks like. And in those roles, I did learning and development was my initial introduction into working in an HR team. I did that for 10 years, and then I moved into compensation and benefits or reward, whatever you want to call it, for the rest of my time. On this slide, I threw together. So my university degree was in zoology. Immunology was the specialism that and also parasitology, which was very interesting. I loved genetics. I originally wanted to be a geneticist, but that didn't work out because of one thing and another. So um, I moved into that and came out of it not really knowing what I wanted to do. So then I went into temporary office work, which which I did all through my university degree as well. I was working for the council, the local council, and I was helping people to use the IT because at the time it was word perfect and it was really complex and people couldn't really understand it. But Microsoft Office was coming in at the same time, and I was just really interested in it also. I was able to help people to use the technology that we had. And from that, I got a role in learning and development, working for the council as well. Um, and that's how I got into working in the HR team and moved from there to SAIC. So that was a bit of a weird path into HR, which I wouldn't probably have chosen, I don't think. I wouldn't have chosen to end up in HR, but the council were great because they put me through my professional development award. So I got my CIPD in HR, and then I self-funded an MSc in HR as well. That picture there is really just all of the aspects of HR. I often speak to people about HR and they say, oh, HR never get back to me and they take ages. And I think it's easy to underestimate how much HR people are dealing with because they cover such a broad range of subjects. So I've kind of plonked in there, they aren't just dealing with the day-to-day questions from employees. They've got all of the kind of corporate stuff to deal with. They've got culture, they've got business issues, change issues. They've got a lot of topics like well-being, talent, organization design, resourcing, all of that stuff. So I've kind of touched on a lot of those things throughout my career, but I love reward, and I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and certainly not HR people's cup of tea, but I absolutely love it. I love helping people with it because they're not generally all that interested in the finances and numbers and the analysis. They don't necessarily thrive on that, so I love being there to help them with it. And that's really just kind of where I fit in. So what's on the next slide? I can't even remember. Can't click. It's not letting me move. There we go. Oh yes, the reward. So when I started working for SEIC, it was a really interesting business because it was very well formed and they had really high standards. It was super hard to work for them because they were always pulling people up for everything that they did. But when I left SEIC, I realized that not all businesses are like that. And where I found myself was in a place where I knew what good looked like because SEIC was so pernickety about everything. And I was able to then look at the business that I was in and help with the transformation of some of the stuff that they were doing. So an example of that was when I started at Repsol, where I'm just leaving now. They still were using paper forms for making salary decisions, and the paper form would have to be manually signed by about 3 people. So we would dish these forms out, leave it on desks. It was like super confidential information just being left lying around. We couldn't then find them. We didn't know where we were at. So I was able to take that really archaic process and bring it into the century that we're in now. So I was able to use the technology. I was able to convince people to use electronic signatures. We put into a place a task management system so that it was all traceable, trackable. Other people could pick it up if needed to. So that's just one example of something that I've done, but I do that across all of the reward subjects, so compensation, benefits, payroll. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but there's such a wide range of things that I can get involved in. But one of the things I plan to do as I work through my initial pieces of work is try and refine it a little bit. Because what I'm learning is that being broad isn't that easy to sell. So if you want to be able to tell people what you do, you need to kind of narrow it down. I'm not there yet, but I am kind of thinking at the moment there's quite a lot of new legislation coming in to the HR world, and a lot of that connects to rewards. So that could be, I think, a way for me to help people to understand, what I can do, because although that legislation requires a certain thought process, loads of this stuff is behind the actual work that needs to be done to get you there. So I think, yeah, that's kind of where my general thinking is at the moment. What else? My vision. So why am I doing this? There's lots of reasons. I don't really, I love doing my job. I don't really want to get involved in all of the corporate politics. I know that regardless, I'll still need to understand what the politics are in a business, but I don't really want to be in the nitty-gritty of it and getting distracted. 2 minutes. Um, so that's one reason. I believe from what I've heard, and I'm sure half of you are probably going to say, no, it's not going to happen. I would like to have a better work-life balance, and I feel like if I'm in control of the work that I'm doing, I might be able to achieve that. I want to focus on my job. I want to regain control. I am a bit of a control freak, and I feel like if I'm in charge of my own business, then I can take that on. I like start and end points, so I like to work on a project where I get a piece of work, I deliver the result, and I move on. And long term, I want to work part time. So when I get into a place where I can start to take like use my pension a bit and do things with that, I would like to be able to work part time for myself. That little thought cloud is just some of the things that I focus on. And then the rest of me, so I live this little picture up at the top left, that's where I live. It's beautiful. We live beside the River Dee. There's lots of trees. It's very colourful. Our houses are white. We paint them white. This river here is that's like where we go swimming, just in the Dee next to the house. I have 3 children. Uh, Millie is 18, Hope is 16, and Eden is 12. That's them down in the bottom left. Millie is a cyclist. She's been having a mental health break, but she was at this picture is actually from the Youth Commonwealth Games, which were in Trinidad. She locked out on the location, and that was last year. She got to go to Trinidad and race for the team. She came back with 3 medals. She was delighted. This was her medals came from the track, cycling on track. She does road and time trial and stuff as well. My middle daughter is getting into rowing, so she's following in my footsteps, absolutely loves it. She has been a cyclist, but is enjoying the social side of rowing. And my youngest isn't not she doesn't like competing. She plays bagpipes, she does parkour, skateboarding, BMX, all that stuff. That's my husband there in the middle. We have a couple of cats, and I am still rowing, and I also help managing a junior girls cycling team based in Scotland in my spare time. And that's them in the pink and orange because they're so cute and colourful. And that's it. Have I overshot? Am I done?
I think you're about right. Oh,
Good.
good. Good job. Well done. Lovely to get to know a bit more about you, Fiona. I think we maybe got time for just one or two questions. Matt's saying one question. Oh, oh.
I have a question.
Have you got a question?
Yeah, I just want to say, Fiona, what an incredible life you live. I mean, that's your mansion house, yeah? That's your
No, so the big one is my neighbour. We're the sort of long one behind it. It
ah,
used to be the barn. It used to be the cow's barn, and it's been converted into a house.
Still pretty cool though.
it's very cool.
Yeah, it's
And
lovely. It's
what
really
I wanted to
lovely.
say, Fiona, I think the one thing you got to get across is what employee reward even means. There's a few
Yeah,
people, there's a few people out there doing it, and I don't think anyone understands what it
so
means.
hard. I know.
So it's
I
it's
I
really a case
totally get that.
each week talk about something else as part of it. So when people say employee reward, I think medical health. That's all I think. So
Mm.
we have to make sure that you get across exactly what it means, because
Yeah.
I think unless people understand, you'll hit a brick wall, because if people don't understand, they can't refer. So I think your job is to explain exactly what employee reward means, bit
Hmm.
by bit by bit. That's my advice to you, because it's, as you say, it's big,
Yeah.
but I don't fully understand it at all.
No, I totally get that. And I sort of, I think I have to do something different for different audiences so that our HR people can get it. So it's
Yeah,
easier to have that conversation. And also I'm speaking to a number of kind of recruiters and people like that who get it.
yeah,
But for the general public, I need something snappier,
yeah,
but it's so hard to figure out what
100%.
that is.
But well done. That was fascinating. Very good.
Good.